Hey, welcome to the Hot Pursuit podcast, where we talk about retargeting and related topics. Today we have Omar Hakooz, who's going to talk to us about email, specifically cold email and things like that. So, Omar, can you tell the audience a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, thanks, Roy, for having me. I appreciate it. My name is Omar. I'm the founder of Hack Sales. We do email marketing. Specifically, we really specialize in cold email marketing, and even more specific than that, B2B cold email. We kind of dabble in everything related to email, but that is our specialty.
Cool. Yeah, and I've seen you've got a lot of great content on LinkedIn and have done a lot of been talking about a lot of interesting things. So I'd recommend people go check you out there afterwards. So what do you think when it comes to cold email? What are some of the sort of the basic factors that people need to think about?
Right. So I'd say, there's a lot of people, specifically in like sales and marketing teams now in companies that are starting to familiarize themselves more with the aspect of cold emailing and the concept of it in general. I think, it's funny since considering how often people use email and how long email's been around, there's a lot to it that maybe, people don't fully explore or they hear about it. Like maybe they try it and give up with it or they don't fully understand it. So when it comes to cold emailing, I think the most important things to remember, right, are you're just trying to spark conversations. Cold emailing can be used in a lot of scenarios, most notably commonly in the business space and kind of what my company specializes in doing. But people even use cold email to land job interviews, to get an important meeting with somebody. There's a lot of uses with it. I think it's most important to remember to keep your message like I would say on the briefer side, and brief is subjective, of course, but I'd say no more than 2 to 3 paragraphs max. I really like to stay under 7 to 8 sentences max, and it's really you're just trying to get the person's attention. You're trying to get in front of them, and you're trying to have a conversation. And another aspect to remember is people get lots of emails, specifically if it's a person that's kind of or an organization that's hard to get a hold of, they're going to have even more emails. So you just want to kind of be unique, stand out, be respectful of the other person's time, and just try to get a conversation going.
So do you think, obviously you don't want to be too long, that's great advice. Do you think that it's possible, well, I mean, I guess it could, of course it could be too short, but do you have any idea about how short is too short?
Yes, I would say, well, there's kind of like, people that are always trying to innovate and disrupt. So some people say, like, forget the traditional way of cold emailing. I'm just going to send hey in the subject line and 1 or 2 sentences as a cold email, and that's that. And that's kind of like, sure, you'll stand out, sure, that's unique. But in certain scenarios, I think that can almost come off as disrespectful, if I'm being honest. Even if you don't intend for it to be. If you're reaching or you're attempting to reach a person in a high position of power or, a high influence or a high net worth individual or organization, they, it could kind of come off as almost like not like, being conscious of their position and their time and their status and so forth. But, even just in general, I think 1 or 2 sentences, like, sure, some people might succeed with that tactic. Sure, you could try it out if you want, but I personally would not recommend anything less than like maybe a paragraph.
Yeah, and I guess there's only it can only be so short and still hit all those elements that you were talking about that are so important. So, what do you think people should expect to see when it comes to they've decided to do cold email, and let's say they're doing something like maybe they're a SaaS company and they've gone on built with and they're figuring out, these people use a competitor. Let's cold email these people. Um, do you have any more specific? I don't know. What do you think that they should expect to see in terms of results?
That's a great question, actually. Yeah, I'd love to get into that. So basically, when it comes to results, any form of, because cold email marketing is the whole term, right? But it gets reduced to cold email. Cold email at the end of the day, you have to remember, is a form of marketing. So I think it's important to keep that in mind. And when you understand that and you remember that, you can also remember that marketing can be very experimental. Lots of marketing concepts are tried out. So a sales team, a really important question I like to ask as part of the onboarding process before I work with any client is what percent of your overall marketing budget are you allocating to cold emailing, right? Because if you are in a certain percent of business owners where you're going all in on cold email and that's your complete strategy and that's everything you're going, like, good for you and I wish you all the best, but you have to understand it's more experimental and the potential for revenue generated or just your ROI, right, on your cold email campaign is very high, but there's a lot of variables involved that could affect, and so it's basically volatile, right? It could hit really well
Mhm.
or it could not do so good at all. So, but there's certain things you can do to keep in mind. In terms of general overall results that you can expect to see, I think the industry average is like maybe reply rate of like 1%, open rate of like 50%, and then there's the positive reply rate as well. But that's the average. I've had campaigns with as high as 10% response rate, 75, 80, 85% open rate. At the bare minimum, I get if you're doing everything right, you should not have lower than a 50 to 55% open rate, in my opinion. That's unique open rate too. It's not how many times they went back to it or whatnot. Unique open rate. Um, but again, there's certain things you can do to to maximize, I guess, the performance of your campaign, right? So I like to clean and verify all my email lists. So I personally use Million Verifier. There's
Mhm.
Never Bounce, Zero Bounce. There's lots of platforms out there. But yeah, you just want to make sure that your email addresses are all active. They have like an internal way of sorting it out. You upload your email list. It says, don't email these 100 people. The emails don't work or they're not active. They're blocked. And it hurts your score if you send to those accounts. So I always like to clean all of my lists, and it's pretty low risk, low effort, pretty cost effective. I like to run all of my email copy through a spam checker. So I use MailMeter's spam checker. It's a free tool anybody can use online. You put the copy of your email sequence in there and it tells you automatically like any words or phrases that might be spammy or flagged by any service providers like Google or Yahoo or whatever the case may be. So little tips like that just to make sure your message is clear, your email list is active, everything's up to date, and your sending accounts are in good standing. You definitely want to check the DNS records of your email account, the domains attached to your email accounts as well. That's a little bit something more specific we can get into on another day if you want.
Yeah, well, so that actually, I think that brings up another question. So you talked about some things that are, uh, so you talked about how much are you budgeting towards cold email, and you talked about how much, you talked about some of the things that I think people would envision spending budget on, like, things to validate and verify emails. What do you think that, what are some of those other things that people need to understand that if they're going to, obviously, there's like the very old school, um, manual way where it's like, I'm just going to go out and I'm going to find people's emails where I can, and I'm going to just send them an email. What would you say are the things that people need to, should expect to spend money on, and that you would recommend that they spend money on when it comes to getting a cold email program underway?
Oh, gotcha. So you mean like everything involved with the campaign overall?
Yeah, well, like, because I know there's things out there like where you can, warm up email
Mm-hmm.
addresses, where you can, there's people, there's ways to buy email addresses. There's a lot of different ways to, say you have $1,000 a month, $10,000 a month, whatever, uh, to spend on cold email. There's a lot of different ways that you could spend that. What would you say the priorities should be, um, to really make something like that work and make sure that you're, not just pouring emails into the spam folder?
Right. So I guess your overall objective would first, or your overall like the first step on the checklist would be to solidify your overall objective. Who are you emailing? What are you emailing them about? What is your end goal, right? So if you are emailing specifically decision makers, or let's even make it more specific, people in the marketing department of technology, tech companies, right? Okay, so then you know that you have a limited number of resources. Personally, I like to use LinkedIn. There's lots of different tools out there to scrape information from LinkedIn profiles, from individuals on there. A lot of information is public, so if it's just on their profile or on their website, the program will just get it like that. If not, it'll try, different. It has its own specific. I don't know specifics of how it works, but you want to invest in a good tool that is able to get you your information. Now, another option is to outsource that, right? Or just have a partner that you work with that is able to consistently scrape information and build accurate lists, and they specify in a certain industry. It might be more beneficial to you if you have a certain budget to just make sure that that's taken care of. You don't have to handle it yourself, or whatever the case may be. There's lots of different options. Personally, I use LinkedIn, and I use a tool. It's called EvaBoot, EVABOOT. It gets information from LinkedIn profiles for you to email. Then I would also recommend the cold email platform that I use currently is instantly.ai. Great platform. I've used lots in the past. Woodpecker, Lemlist, GMass, like Snow, Apollo, you name it. Instantly is the most cost effective, best bang for your buck, and they have a really friendly UI. Pretty straightforward to use. And their customer support is pretty good as well, which I do like. So that's the platform for sending. That's the strategy I just said before for getting your list of who to email. And then in terms of making sure your email accounts are good standing and good for sending, and you're getting in the inbox, you're not going to spam. There's lots of free tools out there. You could pay for something like there's Glock apps, for example. Bit on the pricier side, I would say. They do like comprehensive reports on your email accounts and stuff like that. You can use a free tool like mail-tester.com, completely free. And you send an email to one of their accounts, and it analyzes the back end. How does your account look? How does your domain look? And it'll give you a score and things for you to work on and how to fix it if it's bad.
That's cool. So there are so many different options out there when it comes to sending these cold emails. I think that's one of the most I think that's one of the biggest questions people have, is just like, where do we go to even start sending these things?
So to simplify it even more, it can be complex, but it can also be simple. I look at it from a skewed perspective because I've been doing it for so long and I've tried so many different things that I see it a certain way. But from an outsider perspective, just looking into cold email and you're not really sure where to start or what resources to utilize, instantly.ai is going to be your best friend. I will always recommend that platform for actually setting up your campaigns. But the only other things you need are the emails that you're going to send to, and the list of people that you're going to send to, right? Like the emails that you're sending and the list of people. So there's lots of different options for the list of people. You can gather that internally. You can have some of your employees manually gathering emails that you're going to reach out to, and then you can just send a mass campaign. That's an option. Or you can, go through LinkedIn and find them manually as well. Or you can find a software. I think EvaBoot is personally the best platform. It's really straightforward. It's an extension. You download it on Google Chrome. You go to LinkedIn. You do your search. You press the button. You pay for the credits. You have a list of emails. So it makes it really easy, really simple. And then, you don't have to manually check your email copy. If you think you're really good at copywriting, you could just send it out and you might be fine. But if you want to check it a little bit further, MailMeteor has a really good tool, MailMeteor Spam Checker, to make sure that your email is good, it flows well. It'll tell you the read time, if you have any bad keywords in there. So then with those alone, you have instantly to send the emails. You have EvaBoot to get your emails. And then you have MailMeteor to make sure your email reads well and is sent well.
Cool. Is there anything that you would suggest when it comes to, is tracking built into those tools, or how do you generally determine the effectiveness of your campaigns?
Yes, so to expand a little bit more on Instantly, specifically Instantly.ai, the cold email sending platform, they do a lot. So you can, if you have the $97 plan, I believe, a month or higher, you are able to connect as many accounts as you want, which is a huge advantage because most other platforms, they charge you per user. You can add 100 email accounts if you want, The only thing you have to pay for, or that they charge you based off of, is how many contacts you upload, so how many people you're emailing, and how many emails you've sent out, right? So you can connect 100 accounts if you want, and they have a feature to warm up accounts. So that's completely for free. Basically, you connect the account with them, then you have to add like a tracking domain in your records and your settings. Again, I can expand that a little bit later, but it's pretty straightforward. If you read a tutorial, you can understand it. They make it very user friendly. You basically connect your account with them. You hit start warming. You can customize it if you want, or there's just a default setting, and it'll automatically warm up your accounts. And for those who are listening and don't know what that is, email warm up is essentially once you make a new account, you can't just send out a bunch of emails. You're going to get flagged. You're going to get marked as spam. It's not going to go well. This basically is a process that I like to leave going for at least 2 weeks before sending a campaign. You connect your account, you hit warm up. It'll manually, or will automatically send emails back and forth between your account and all of their accounts to simulate real conversations. So instead of just opening an account and sending out a bunch of emails, you have some emails being sent back and forth for a couple week period, and then you start sending your emails. And they also have a analytics page, so you're able to track the overall status of your campaigns. Let's say you have 10 campaigns going, it'll give you the average statistics of all of them, and you can also view the individual ones. But it'll give you the amount of emails you've sent out. It'll give you how many emails have been opened, how many emails have been responded to, and how many are interested. And it has some AI that automatically detects based off of certain keywords if a prospect's interested or something like that, which is cool because then it'll sort the emails like this person's interested, this person may be interested, this person's not interested. So they have a lot of cool features like that.
That's nice. Is there anything as far as staying out of spam, staying out of the promotions tab, making sure you're getting in the inbox, other than using these tools to check out your copy? Is there any sort of guidelines that you can tell people that would help them just when they're writing that rough draft of their email, things to avoid or things to do to make sure that you're not getting dumped in somewhere they're not going to ever see it?
Yeah, so I'm glad you brought that up too. Just regards to copy specifically, I'll get into that. But the number one thing I want to touch on that I forgot is don't overwhelm the people you're sending to with images or links. A lot of people just want to be like, here's my LinkedIn, here's my Calendly, here's my website, here's my, it's like, here's my mom's website. It's like, you can't be putting 5 different links in there because think about it from Google's perspective. New account, or even if you're not a new account, you're sending out emails to a bunch of people and you're sending links. Those links could be anywhere. It could be a virus. It could be something they're not supposed to be seeing. It could be anything. So one link is fine, right? If you just put one link, here's my Calendly, or you put your link of your website, here's my excuse me. You put the link to your website in your signature, here's my website. But don't do more than 1, maybe 2 links. I would not recommend that. Definitely don't do pictures. Pictures are just like a no-go. Any media, like if you attach, like an attachment is like definite no-go. You don't want to be sending like a PowerPoint presentation or something like that because it just does not look good.
Screams virus.
Yeah, pretty much. It could be anything. It could be literally anything. So, and if you think about it from like Google or Yahoo's perspective, it's a pretty big liability to them because then if a bunch of emails get through with like a virus or something, people are gonna be like, how did you let this happen? So
Yeah.
it's understandable. But regard to copy specifically, like I said, Mailmeter, the spam checker, it's a really, really good, easy tool. You put your whole email in there. It'll say, okay, it takes 1 minute to read this. We have 2 keywords in here that we think might be spammy. And maybe you can improve on this and this, like grammar wise or something like that. So it's, as long as your email flows well and Mailmeter approves of it and you don't have 5 different attachments and stuff, that's going to put you definitely way higher than the rest of the competition. And another thing, don't go crazy with your follow-ups. Definitely don't go crazy with your follow-ups. It's not good for your sending score, your overall email reputation for your account to be sending an email and then a follow-up every 3 days for the next month. Like, you don't want to go crazy. I would recommend max 3 to 4 follow-ups, because if you do 4 follow-ups with the initial email, that's 5 emails. If you span it out, sure, but if you're doing all those in like a span of a month, you just send someone 5 emails a month. That's a lot, So some people are very heavy on follow up, sure, but there's a difference between like sales, like in a car dealership where somebody expressed interest and you're calling them afterwards because they were there, they were like, everything. But this is cold email. It's cold outreach. So you don't want to overwhelm or be disrespectful to the person that you're trying to reach out to.
And is there anything that you try to do with the emails in that sequence besides just like hammer home the message? Do you have like, sometimes you see people say, and on this one I say, I'll assume you're not interested, or on this one, I mean, what's your focus with each email if it's different?
So they are different most of the time. The initial email that I send out for any of my clients is always going to be different. The structure, the message, like maybe it will have an overall structure that will follow, but the specifics are different. The follow-ups can be pretty similar with a lot of clients. Some of them are different, but I like to have the first email follow-up just be, hey, just following up, and then you can say whatever else you want, or just say, hey, just following up. That's also an option. After that, then I'll kind of like maybe give like an option, some options, like, hey, it seemed like you were interested, but I just basically you want to know where they're at. You want to know they want to know what their options are. Like, pursue me at this date, don't pursue me, or reach out to my colleague, or whatever the case may be. And then you can add in another one if you want. I like to keep it pretty straightforward. Again, like maybe 2 or 3 follow-ups is what I do personally. The last email is going to be what's called the breakup email. That's the last one that you're sending. It's like, I'm breaking up with you. I'm not messaging you anymore. So that's usually the one that people and me specifically, you kind of give, just say like, hey, whatever way you want to say it, basically are trying to relay the message that I'm here for you if you want to reach out, but if not, I'm not going to contact you anymore.
And when it comes to compliance, as far as like, um, do you generally do an unsubscribe link, or do you just kind of say, just let me know if you don't want to hear from me? And does that make a difference? Um, because I've seen some of those spam checkers or whatever where, and you can try different things, and I've always wondered those rules that you have to follow. Like, you got to put your mailing address in there. You got to put some kind of way for them to stop getting emails from you. Are those going to get you flagged? Is there a way to avoid, to frame them in a way to where you're less likely to get flagged?
Yes. So, like I said before, you don't want to go crazy with the links. And an unsubscribe link at the end of the day is a link. And Google doesn't really know the difference if you have a link in there, whether or not it's an unsubscribe link. What you can have is a list, like an unsubscribe header, which is, if you've ever been on mobile or on Gmail, is
Hmm.
what I'm most familiar with. There's like the 3 dots you can press, and then it'll say unsubscribe. So that's directly integrated within the platform as opposed to a link. You can only really get that if you're sending through a specific platform that isn't really applicable to cold email, or if you have a really well-known account. Basically, that feature is not available to most people. So most
Hmm.
people opt for an unsubscribe link, which is a feature that Instantly does provide. So to make it very straightforward, you can just toss it in there. As far as the compliance and so there's the GDPR, right, in the EU, and then there's the can spam in the US. So, like you were saying, you touched on before, you have to have a certain amount of information available for the person that you're reaching out to, and a means for them to opt out. So we always utilize unsubscribe links in every single campaign. We also have a feature that I think it's automatic by Instantly. Yeah, it's automatic, where if they respond, you can toggle it off, but I always leave it on. If they respond, it automatically stops contacting them. So let's say, every single one I see for the most part, but just in case I don't see a message where some people will just say, stop messaging me,
Hmm.
it'll automatically not message them anymore. So it's not a matter of, oh, I miss this person and I've been sending emails to them, and, just in case, it's like a fail safe kind of thing, like just in
Yeah.
case. Um, but then also, it does improve your deliverability when you put in the link, unsubscribe link, because essentially, if any negatives come from putting in that link, the positives that come from putting in the link outweigh them, because some people, if they can't find a way to opt out, they'll just report you as spam, or they'll block you and report you as spam, which
Yeah.
is not good for your account whatsoever. So if 10 people do that, that's very bad. So just having that option for them definitely helps. Um, and yeah, as far as the can spam, you can look up the guidelines online to see what specific information you need to include in your email. And to be honest with you, a lot of people don't even know about can spam. And I would say a majority of people don't even follow it. I do, just to save myself and my clients. I'm not trying to, but at the end of the day, those repercussions that would come to you from unsolicited contacts, whatever the broad term that is,
Hmm.
you can mitigate your involvement or your risk in that if you just because like the cold outreach or cold email is not anything you can't do. There's a set of guidelines you have to follow.
Yeah, it seems like there's really two big groups. There's the one group that doesn't follow any of the rules, and then there's the other group that thinks you're not even allowed to cold email people in the first place.
Yup,
And
yup,
very not as many people as you would think are in the middle with the accurate
completely
information.
agree.
Um,
Yeah.
well, yeah. So that's really that's. And what about? Do you think? Do you use a different subject line each time, or do you think that it's better to reply in line and go down that way?
So, I've learned a lot of things just in my time of all of cold emailing and all the different campaigns I've done. I found it to be really important now to do variations of your email, even if it could be a bit tedious. You can use ChatGPT to help you out if you need some inspiration, or I'm not saying you have to take the idea that it gives you, but you want to take your sequence and you don't want to be sending the exact same email to every single person, even if you personalize it with a couple different variables. It could be 90% similar, all the emails. So you can say, "Hey, how are you doing?" And you can also say, "How are you?" Like, and then, like there's lots of different ways to say the same thing is what I'm trying to say. So you can, and I do recommend making variations of your copy. So you're sending different, and you can do like an A/B test, and you can send the first email to 50% of the people, and the second email, second 50%. It's the same message, it's just worded differently, but it improves your deliverability. Um, and yeah, that's definitely something that helps.
Cool. Now, and do you still have a free tool available that people are able to use, or
Yeah,
when it comes
so
to
if
the first lines?
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up as well. If anybody comes to my profile, checks out my profile, and I'm gonna add it to my site now that you say I should reference that on my website. So if you want to check out my website, it's hacksales, HAKSALES.com, or on my LinkedIn, I have a post referencing it. You can message me if you want the link. Basically, I put together like a short guide. It's a Loom recording that you can watch, and then also in the message I'll send you or on my website, there's links available, and basically you're able to automate through Google Sheets, which is like Google's Excel, and ChatGPT, if you're not familiar with it, if you are, first liners that you can include in your emails to with your cold outreach, and it basically adds an aspect of personalization, but allows you to automate it so you don't have to do it all manually, and it saves you time. But yeah, I can provide that link.
Awesome. And then the last thing is just so we have a lot of um, people who usually post they're getting however many depending on whether they're using the B2B or the B2C side, they're getting up to 40% of their website visitors email addresses even when they don't convert. So that means that they need to cold email these people generally, and they're using email retargeting. And that's the kind of thing where I would think that your company would be able to offer a lot of value. Could you share a little bit more just about the kind of companies you work with and what you do with them and the value you deliver?
Yeah, for sure. So, in my time of doing email marketing and building up the business, I've worked with a lot of different kind of clients and industries because the overall concept of what I'm doing is applicable to most B2B industries. It is specific to B2B, but there's a lot of industries within it. So I basically specialize in helping online, primarily people that are either selling online, like a physical product, like an online store, or online services and apps and online products and stuff like that. So, but in terms of retargeting, I think it's really important that because I've had a lot of campaigns like one off. So I got my start primarily on Upwork, which is a freelancing platform if you guys aren't familiar with it. And there's a lot of project based work on there. So I would hop around on different jobs, and some of them would be one off jobs like, hey, I have these people that are kind of interested. It could be lots of different things. Like, for example, this one guy is a wedding organizer and planner, and he had a list of women that were going to be married soon that filled out an application, but they weren't interested anymore. It's like, I'm not sure the best way to reach out to them. I have their emails and stuff. I think we could do a campaign. So we sent a blast to them, and it did pretty well, actually. It did pretty well. And if he didn't just set up that simple campaign, he wouldn't have had that.
Yeah.
So the power of retargeting is definitely important. That's just one example. I mean, I could give more. I've had a lot of campaigns like that. But when it comes to email marketing and B2C, that's a bit of a different ballpark and ball game. We do aspects of B2C, like we do email design. I can help with email design. We can help with email design, you know, email newsletters, right? But specifically, B2B, cold email is best in B2B. And I found it to be best specifically within B2B in, any company that's really online sales dependent. Like
Hmm.
they could have sales from other avenues as well, but if they're primarily online sales or they want to focus more on online sales, I know that's a very broad statement, but cold email will help you in that situation.
Yeah, we see on the B2C side, it is mainly like you mentioned, it's like shopping cart abandonment and stuff like that. Those are the
Right.
campaigns that do really well. So there's not really a lot of need for, a ton of copy. It's kind of like a one and done thing. But knowing the kind of results that you've gotten through straight up cold email, I think that people would really, I think it'd be really interesting to see the kind of things you did with. They're not exactly cold emails, it's like they didn't convert on the website, but they were on the person's website. You're even able to see what they were looking at and even reference that in the email, even automatically. So I think that it would be really interesting uh, to see what you could do when you kind of had a leg up there. So thanks a lot for coming on the podcast. There's a lot of really interesting information and valuable information, and so we'll put together a blog post on this that people can take a look at so that they can um, find out where to reach you, how to get that tool, um, and get the scoop on the things that we talked about if they're readers instead of listeners.
For sure, for sure. Yeah, Roy, I
And just
appreciate you
one more
having
time,
me.
so that's Hack Sales. That's HAKSALES.com, right?
Correct, correct. Yeah,
Awesome.
yeah.
All right. Well, thank
I
you so
really
much,
appreciate
Omar.
you. Yeah, of course. Really appreciate you having me, and hope to be back on again sometime soon.
Definitely.